The game I'll be covering today came to my attention for unfortunate reasons. The main developer of Code Bunny was recently kicked out of their childhood home for reasons related to Pride Month. People started posting about the game on Twitter to try to help them financially, and the trailer reminded me of some of my favorite games like Sonic Rush, Mega Man ZX, and Downwell, so for $10, it was an easy buy. If anything, I'm annoyed I didn't find this game sooner. It's the exact kind of 2D platformer I've always clicked with, and that's further helped by one of the main characters being named Axel, the best name for any video game character. Code Bunny is currently available on itch.io, with work on a Steam version having been paused because the developers suddenly became homeless. If you do buy this game though, which I will convince you to do by the end of this video, you should add it to your Steam library because natively it has some issues with PS4 controllers, but they run completely fine if you load the game through Steam. Loading the game for the first time, you'll be met with a choice of characters to experience the game's story with, Axel and Hazel. While the same broad story is told through each of theirs, that of loss caused by the corrupt state of the world, their individual stories are pretty different both in tone and gameplay. From there, you're dropped into a short tutorial section that flows seamlessly into the opening level and gives you a taste of the varied movement options you'll have at your disposal as the game progresses. If you're playing as Axel, this comes in the form of a pirouette second jump that also goes through projectiles and acts as its own attack. If you're playing as Hazel, you get an arrow projectile that lets you warp to whatever you hit and attack it, along with giving you a second jump afterward. You can shoot multiple arrows, and the game tracks what you hit in what order, so you can zap across areas after a few seconds of setup. Plus, they can be used mid-air to keep you gliding. After the first boss fight, you'll gain access to metered options just like you'd see in a fighting game, as if Code Bunny's gameplay couldn't be more tailored to my exact sensibilities. Hazel's meter comes in the form of Karma, which is basically Nagoriyuki's blood gauge from Guilty Gear Strive. You earn Karma by landing hits, but once your Karma passes a certain level, two things come into effect as you enter Code Bunny's version of Blood Rage. The first is that your next tethered attack, which resets your Karma, will do quadruple damage. But the second is that if you are hit in this state, you will be dropped to like 10% of your health regardless of where it started. This makes it a necessity to always have a tether point active during boss fights. On top of that, Hazel also gains access to a meterless parry. It's really easy to tell that this ultra-fast 2D platformer with boss fights in the style of bullet hell games was made by fighting game fans. Then on the other side of things, Axel gains access to an EX meter that he builds by landing hits with his pirouette and can spend on additional movement options which are great for exploring different parts of the levels. But since I was more so trying to just get through the levels so I could make this video sooner, I didn't find myself taking advantage of them as much as the game would allow you to if you were doing a more casual playthrough. Code Bunny's really good about accommodating the different approaches their players may have by offering two different game modes outside of its normal story mode. A classic mode in the vein of how older games used to just be level, boss, etc. without major cutscenes, along with a speedrunning mode that lets you play through all the levels consecutively without any interruptions at all. It's a smart choice. The game is already fast, so adding a mode that embraces people wanting to go as fast as they can is a great quality of life addition. Having had to play through the game multiple times because OBS crapped a bed on my first run with Axel, going into these levels a second time knowing how the controls really worked with him let me see just how fast I could get through them. It was so much fun to dash through the levels, bouncing off enemies and pirouetting across massive gaps. The pirouette spin you've probably seen a bunch of up to this point in the video is the crux of Axel's gameplay, like Sonic's Spin Dash or Mega Man's Blaster. It's simultaneously an attack, a movement option, your primary source of defense, and the way you gain meter. This all turns it into one of the most overpowered moves I've ever seen in a video game. Once you understand just how strong it is, it makes the boss fights a bit too easy, with two exceptions, the Air Temple level and the final showdown. See, when you use the pirouette, you'll bounce off whatever you hit. There's a recoil effect. Hazel's parry also has a sort of recoil, but it's a lot easier to fight against and basically nullify. But on top of the recoil, Axel's pirouette locks you out of your other meterless movement options until you hit something. In the two boss fights where you can fall off the stage, you have to be a lot more careful about using the grounded version because you can accidentally huck yourself off the platform and lose the fight. The final boss in particular seems specifically made to punish people treating the move like a win button. People like me. Whereas playing Axel is like playing the game on easy mode thanks to the pirouette being so strong to the very end, playing as Hazel is playing the game on ultra hard, and this is almost entirely because of the final boss fight. This fight beat me! You can go see it on my Clips channel right now. I gave this fight an hour and even had one instance of coming within a single pixel of beating it, but I couldn't do it. Gonna leave space right here in case I end up beating it before this video comes out. Seriously, look at the screen, look at how fast the gameplay is going, and how there's basically no downtime between me dying and the match starting right back up. Now imagine doing that for an hour straight. I stopped not because I wanted to, but because my left index finger was about to start throbbing. If you're looking for games that'll really give you a challenge, this boss fight does not fuck around. It will savage you, and I love that. I think it's so cool that Code Bunny has two different characters that are essentially difficulty settings. Axel's a breeze, but with Hazel, you've got to be a lot more aware of your positioning. To go along with that, while Axel has the higher floor, Hazel absolutely has the higher ceiling in terms of being able to cut through levels in boss fights. These two characters contrast each other so well, both in their gameplay and in their stories, right down to their personalities. Even when they interact in the story mode, the contrast works to make things more interesting. Now, while the boss fights in general are really cool, where the game excels is in its level design. There were a lot of creative choices taken when building these levels, and what first stuck out to me was Code Bunny's take on the classic 2D platformer trope of failed jump equals death. Except when it doesn't, and we won't tell you when it won't. On level 1, falling down a gap at any point at the starting height just leads you into an underpass. Falling down a gap down there equals death, but I really liked how the game didn't mess around with this from your starting position. Unlike in, say, Mario, where falling down two completely identical gaps can give you two very different results, Code Bunny just drops you into a different part of the level where you need to do more work to get back on track. Then there's the level where you can't fall down gaps because even the lowest part of the level is boosted by wind that'll keep you propped up. But where Code Bunny's creative level design really caught me was in its final level. Going for a jump, realizing I'm not going to land on anything, then seeing my character start falling out of the sky caused a chain of reactions that went, oh shit. Wait, what? Oh. From that point on, I started jumping down everything just to see what platforms and enemies might be above me out of sight. It completely inverts every instinct you have from playing any video game ever. Falling into the void is usually a bad thing, but in this level, it's the thing, and it leads to some really creative puzzles. The final stretch of this level will fight you though. The last checkpoint comes a ways back, and if you aren't on the money for a good 20 to 30 seconds, you'll find yourself repeating this section over and over again. I speak from experience. When Code Bunny gets difficult, it really pushes you to understand just how versatile the additional movement options are. I said it at the top of the video, and I'll say it again here. I wish I found this game sooner. Top to bottom, it's fantastic, and for so many different kinds of players. If you're looking for a cool story about rabbits in space, Code Bunny offers a lot in terms of cutscenes and having you really get to know the characters. I normally don't expect 2D platformers to offer much of a story, but I was thoroughly entertained by both Hazel's and Axel's. If you're looking for some classic 2D fun, the aptly named Classic Mode is right there. And if you don't care about anything other than going fast, Code Bunny completely embraces speedrunning. If they were to throw in some voice acting, maybe a little fighting arena mode and some mini games, I could totally see this game being well worth a $30 price tag. In its $10 form, it already feels like an absolute steal. I really hope the team behind Code Bunny, and specifically its main developer, keep making games, and if they do, you will see those games talked about on this channel because I had so much fun with Code Bunny. It's a credit to how good the game really is that I have all this gushing praise for it despite having played it specifically to make a video on it. Playing a game for work inherently makes it less fun than playing a game just for the hell of it, but if I had found Code Bunny randomly in the same way I found, say, The Friends of Ringo Ishikawa or The Void Rains Upon Her Heart, it would be making a serious case for being one of my favorite games, period. I'm gonna have to come back to the game in a few months and just play it casually to see if it can make the jump from awesome game to one of my all-time favorites. And the best part of it is that it's short. Nowadays, even a lot of indie games are asking you to give a lot of time to reach their conclusions, which can get tiresome when a majority of games are asking for like 15 hours at the minimum. It often feels like the art of the short game is fading away. But in Code Bunny's case, I played through both story modes and wrote this script in a single weekend. All Code Bunny asks is that you give it a shot, and if you do, you could very well end up beating it by accident. It's great fun from start to finish, you should absolutely play it. The link to its itch.io page will be in the description and the pinned comment. Thanks for watching, now go get a great game.